What is up, wrestling fans? I am Jason Burgos for Ringside Intel, and I have the pleasure of being joined by a true influencer in the professional wrestling industry. He was the driving force behind legendary 80s all-women's promotion Glow and has continued that impact in the business today as the CEO of WOW Women of Wrestling, and that is the one and only David McLane. Senor McLane, thanks so much for the time today.
Jason. How you doing out there in Ohio with that New York accent of yours, brother?
I'm fantastic. I have a ton of questions on Wild to ask you, just about the company, all the things going on, things that could be coming as well. So the first I want to ask about talent scouting and development. Like, the talent pool in women's wrestling is as deep as it's ever been, but like with the industry as healthy as it's been in a while, there's a lot of competition, a lot of people trying to snap up and scoop up some of these young rising star female athletes. Who do you lean on in the company as well as yourself to find the next WOW superhero? And what kind of qualities are you looking for and the staff is looking for that you feel is the best fit to be in women of wrestling?
Well, we have a homegrown base. Vis-a-vis, we have the only all-women's wrestling training academy in the country here in Los Angeles. So we have women that come in and train at our LA training academy, and we've created some of our own homegrown based talent. You know, everyone knows the Beast from WOW Women of Wrestling. She's homegrown. So we're looking for, people with passion with the business, people that have pizzazz, and athletes. And if they have those combinations, they're in the door and we're going to train them. And we have a 2-time NWA champion. She's been the rock and foundation of WOW since its beginning, Selena Majors, that heads up. She doesn't get enough credit. She doesn't get enough flowers, if you will, in today's modern speak, for what she's done for women's wrestling and nurturing it. We're old school, and we put it together, and it's homegrown talent. Now that said, that question was asked to me at San Diego Comic-Con, and Jeannie Buss, who would we like to see in WOW if we could have a wish list. And of course, we noted the enforcer, Sophie Cunningham of the Indiana Fever. And she'd be great in WOW. She has all the athletic background. People thought that was, why would you mention Sophie? Because she's in the WNBA, and you could mention other WNBA stars. She has the actual pedigree and the background to be great in professional wrestling. And not necessarily does she have to wrestle. She's got a new podcast out, and she could be a great manager. She could be a great commentator. I'd love to have Sophie Cunningham to get into WOW, and the door is wide open. She could even be commentating with us. She could do a management job.
And as a person who also writes for our sister site, SportsNot, I know how popular Sophie Cunningham is and the numbers we've gotten for stuff. So that was actually a brilliant move by you guys to mention her, because getting her in
it wasn't a brilliant move. The question popped up. We didn't know it was coming.
Okay. Even better.
And Jeannie and I had discussed it prior to even going there. When we watched her take down one of, a WNBA player, I said, that's the Marty McSorley for women. She's Caitlin Clark's enforcer. And so we had discussed it prior to San Diego Comic-Con.
So Japan and Mexico, especially like visually, feel like they have talent that are a good fit for WOW. You have Tormenta already on the roster. Has your team looked harder, especially at those regions in recent years, to kind of bring in new talent from there, as well as if you're bringing in talent from Japan and Mexico to further expand the WOW brand in those countries?
We have several performers that we've had from Mexico that have participated in WOW. Tormenta, of course, being our current champion, which was a big find. Daga helped bring her in. Daga and Tessa Blanchard, when she was with us, helped introduce us. We have a few other Mexican stars in WOW. Thunder Rosa used to wrestle for us. Everyone knows her from AEW. And I'm not familiar with, other than those that wrestle here in the other organizations, with the Japanese wrestling contingency.
Okay. Now, companies like WWE, AEW have made like the industry far more connected than it was a decade ago because and they're working with other companies and having relationships and work relationships, talent sharing. What is your interest level in something maybe like talent sharing with a TNA, HOG, WCW, GCW, Reality of Wrestling, and Booker T owns, and of course the big companies as well, AEW, WWE. Has there ever been discussions internally to kind of expand the WoW brand by having some of them, your talent on these other companies and reaching different fans, as well as bringing in with sharing talent, new competition for the roster?
Well, we're doing that in the case of several wrestlers that wrestle independently in some other organizations. So yes, we're open to it, and we've been doing it.
Is there any company in particular that you feel, maybe for a real official expanded relationship, you feel that maybe their roster fits you or it's realistic, something like that could possibly happen?
No, it's not really. I look at the individual wrestlers and see if there's a fit within the individual versus a company.
Okay.
The key, what's the individual like to fit into WoW, not per se individual company.
Which makes sense because not everybody, for the type of product that you guys present, it makes sense for every kind of wrestling, stuff like that. So that's fair. Not only does WoW have you and your wealth of knowledge, but like you mentioned, the Los Angeles Lakers governor Jeannie Buss is a part of the company. And, I had the pleasure of talking to her a couple of years ago, and she, asked her about the idea of being on television. You kind of referenced that. Is there any kind of movement towards maybe getting Jeannie on wild television content a little bit more, maybe for a short-term storyline, something like that? Because having her on the brand, because of how big a deal she is, it gets those mainstream outlets like ESPN and some of these big CNNs paying attention more. Has there ever been any movement to that possibility?
Well, one, she's commentated with me on the wrestling program before. And two, she's had a day job called the LA Lakers that kept her a little bit busy over the last 2 years during our TV tapings. But it's got to come naturally. We're not going to force it. But the answer to your question is we'd love to have Jeannie. She's the boss. It's her decision. She calls the shots. So it's I guarantee if Sophie Cunningham comes in, Jeannie will be a singer.
Speaking of Jeannie, having strong financial backing is a key part of survival and for sports promotion, stuff like that. And she certainly helps bring that. Have there been any talks about maybe trying to add, like I said, the talent pool for women's wrestling is as big as ever. Now you're having like free agents that are coming onto the market that can really be impact the issues, and not for multi-year deals, maybe for a short-term deal that benefits, while someone like Paige, former champion like Paige, Dakota Kai, coming in for a short-term feud with superheroes like Tormenta, Paula Mayfield. Is there any thoughts about something like that can really help the brand and them?
Oh, definitely. I look forward to that. I think what WoW has to do, though, is it's got to grow.
Okay.
And we've been growing organically, and then we've been growing with the help of Paramount, and we've got to go to another level, another step up in growing this wrestling brand, which is live television. And we've got to get to live TV and weekly broadcasts, and we can do just what you suggested, Jason.
And you guys are on different outlets. You're on Roku, Vice TV, Pluto. You're out there in a lot of places. What do you feel would be like the timeline on something like that? Like, what's your grand plan? Like, where would you like to be? Is it like 2 years we'd like to be?
Within the next year, we want to start putting on live programming, whether that's once a month or quarterly, and see how that is accepted by the audience, and then grow that into a weekly live broadcast.
You have been around the business a long time. How different is it now to promote a wrestling brand than it was 80s, 90s? Because social media can be a great help, but also social media is difficult. It's, it's a weird little puzzle to figure out to get really traction with it. Like I mentioned, you guys are on different outlets, and being on platforms and TV is always huge or something like wrestling, but now you have so many channels, so many streaming services, so the competition is more than it was in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. What's the pros and cons of trying to grow a wrestling brand now compared to back then?
Well, you hit it. if you're fortunate enough to get a wrestling brand on, and I've been very fortunate that I was able to succeed in Glow and sell that in the 80s and then bring back WOW with the help of Jeannie. And the pro is there's more outlets so you can reach more people potentially and different avenues. However, the flip side of that coin is the fact that if the streaming outlets weren't there and traditional broadcast was there with syndication, which is our baby right now, we would own the space. We would own it. Because if you go back to the 80s, when Glow was on, the Fox network hadn't even been built out yet.
Yeah.
It was just starting. And subsequently, you know, we were only on, Glow never exceeded 85% of the country's clearances. But I couldn't walk in an airport and someone didn't know the show. It was known everywhere because everyone in the entire landscape only had 4 or 5 TV stations. So that's how we were doing ratings of 16. Sometimes we did a 23 rating, and thinking Houston somewhere. So anyway, today you're lucky to do a 1.5 or a 2 rating.
Yeah.
Because everyone has got more opportunities to watch on different avenues. So that's the flip side of the coin.
As a person that has been, like I mentioned, doing this for so long, had success, you've also seen a huge evolution of the sport in these last 30 years and how it's changed and adjusted and all the elements that come into it now, like we talked about. Is there any parts of the industry today, be it matches or promotion, you're like, that's just not my cup of tea, not a fan of that, just not something I would do with WOW. I don't like where we're going with that kind of thing.
Now, did you say with respects to the industry, or did you say with the respects to WOW?
To the industry, like other companies that are like, they do that. I don't really like that we're going that way with that wrestling now.
Well, I appreciate the other companies because they're growing wrestling, and I like that. And wrestling's changed a lot since I was in it and started in it. And so I'm more of a traditionalist, and I'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. Perfect way to end.